The first thing you learn inside is that silence has a price. Not the silence of empty hallways or locked cells. The silence of a man who knows something and has decided, for reasons you will never fully understand, to keep it to himself. That silence costs money. Everything in here costs money. And you, somehow against every odds stacked against you from the moment those gates closed behind you, you are the one who controls where that money goes.
It didn't start that way. Nothing like this ever does. You came in with 18 months. Possession with intent. Your lawyer called it a good deal. You called it the worst day of your life. You were wrong about that too, because the worst days hadn't started yet. The first week inside Crestfield Correctional, a Level 4 facility housing just under 2,000 men, you were nobody. You ate what you were given, you slept when the lights went out. You kept your eyes forward and your mouth shut, and you counted the days, the way every new inmate does, desperately, like counting somehow makes them move faster.
They don't. What moves fast in here is information. Who just got transferred in? Which officer is on the take? Which block had a seizure last night and which block didn't? And why that difference matters more than you think. By your third week, you start noticing patterns. Not because you're looking for them, because you can't help it. Your mind has always worked that way. Connecting things, mapping systems, finding the architecture underneath what everyone else sees as chaos. In here, that brain is either your greatest asset or the thing that gets you killed. You're still figuring out which.
The man who first notices you is named Delroy. He runs laundry logistics for C and D Block, which sounds like nothing until you realize that laundry is how half the contraband in Crestfield moves from one end of the facility to the other. Delroy is 51 years old, built like a man who used to lift and never stopped, and he has 14 years left on a sentence that started before you were old enough to drive. He doesn't approach you directly. That's not how it works in here. He sends a younger man named Teo to sit across from you at lunch and ask, casually, what you did before.
You tell him. Accounting. Small firm. Nothing exciting. Teo nods like that's the most interesting thing he's heard all week. 2 days later, Delroy sits down next to you himself. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't explain anything. He slides a folded piece of paper across the table, waits for you to open it, and watches your face while you read the numbers written inside. The numbers are a ledger. Incomplete, clearly hand-reconstructed from memory, covering what looks like 6 weeks of transactions. Commissary credit movements, debt structures, informal loan agreements denominated in cigarettes, phone minutes, and protein bars. It is, without question, the most disorganized financial record you have ever seen in your life, and you have seen some bad ones.
You look up at Delroy. He says simply, "Fix it." You don't ask what's in it for you. You already understand that the offer is the protection implicit in the question. Delroy is not asking you to do work. He is asking you to step inside something. You fold the paper back up, slide it into your sleeve the way you've already learned to move things in here, and you nod once. That nod is the door closing behind you. Within a week, you've restructured the ledger into a system that actually works. Nothing digital. Everything in Crestfield that touches a screen gets monitored, logged, flagged. Your system is paper-based.
encoded in a notation that looks like personal notes about basketball scores to anyone who doesn't know the key. Debts are tracked by cell number and entry date. Interest compounds weekly at a rate calibrated to what the borrower can realistically generate. You've introduced a tiered credit system. First-time borrowers get smaller limits. Returning borrowers with clean histories get access to more. It is, structurally, a functioning microeconomic system operating entirely in the shadow of the visible economy of a maximum security prison. You are its architect. You are 29 years old.
Delroy looks at it for a long time the first time you show him. Then he looks at you. "You've been doing this your whole life," he says. It isn't a question. You say no. This is different from anything you've done before. He almost smiles. That's what I mean.
The months pass differently once you have a function. You stop counting days. You start counting cycles, the weekly rhythm of commissary restocking, the bi-weekly pattern of new intakes, the monthly rotation of officers on the overnight shift that creates brief windows where certain movements become possible. You learn the facility the way you used to learn a new client's books, not just the surface numbers, but the logic underneath. Who owes who has leverage over who, which guard supplements his salary with what kind of arrangement, and what that arrangement requires of everyone who benefits from it. Officer Harlan Briggs supplements his salary considerably. He's been stationed on B Block for 11 years, and in that time has developed what can only be described as a deeply professional relationship with the informal economy you are now helping to manage. Briggs doesn't take cash. Cash inside a facility is traceable in ways that create problems. Briggs takes consideration. A word you learn from Delroy and come to understand means everything from commissary credit redirected to his brother's inmate account at a facility 3 states over, to certain paperwork that mysteriously fails to generate incident reports. Briggs is not corrupt in the way movies make corruption look. He is not dramatic about it. He is, in fact, extremely boring about it. Methodical, consistent, professionally detached. You find him oddly easy to work with.
By month 7, you are not just managing Delroy's books. You are managing the books for 3 separate operations running simultaneously through Crestfield. Delroy's credit network, a parallel system run by a man named Santos out of F Block that deals primarily in pharmaceutical contraband moving through the medical unit, and a third, smaller operation controlled by a group of older white men in D Block who have been running a sports betting pool for so long it has its own institutional culture, its own disputes, its own customs. None of these 3 operations know the full extent of what you manage. Each believes you work primarily for them. This is not an accident. You designed it that way.
You are not sure exactly when you stopped just doing the work and started making strategic decisions about the work. The line, when you try to find it, keeps moving backward. There is a man named Vickers